Yeah,
Let's
thanks
do
for
it.
coming on. You start us off, Shannon.
All right, guys. So today we got JC Morales from Puerto Rico coming in live. I like that background with the what is it? Is it a Rolly? I'm not a watch guy, so
That's a Rolly, yeah. That's a
Rolly
Rolly.
clock.
The
That's the
Rolly,
most
baby.
expensive Rolex that you'll ever see. It was whopping $300.
Hey.
Oh, she still tells time though. That's right. Um, so JC, where give us a little bit of rundown on what you do and where you're located.
Yeah, I'm in San Juan, Puerto Rico. My name is Juan Carlos Morales. I branded myself JC just to make it easier for some people to say who's Juan Carlos is a little bit more complicated to say, but JC Morales from San Juan, Puerto Rico. I'm actually a waterman turned real estate investor, and I've always been an entrepreneur since I was a kid. Got a bunch of stories on how I developed into that more and more, but yeah, I born and raised here. I'm here like most of the year, half the time if I'm not traveling, or I'm also in Canada. My wife's from Canada, so I hang out in Alberta near the Rockies. And yeah, I get to live a really interesting lifestyle, and we can go into that if you want. So
Yeah, let's hear about it. So first off, let's talk about one of your crazy entrepreneur things starting out. I know you said you had a lot of stories. What's one of the coolest things you
so
did or the crazy?
I always tell people these two stories. I think I was trying to figure out when it all started, but one of them was we went on this trip with my parents to an island here. So Puerto Rico has like over 140 islands. Some people don't
Dang, I
realize
didn't know
that.
that.
That's crazy.
So we went to this famous island. We were staying like in this house, vacation rental, and we went to the beach on bicycles. And then my dad said, I have three other siblings. And so the total family is six, my parents and all four of us. He says, hey, whoever gets to the house first will make $5.
Hey.
Dude, I made it back to the house before everybody even got on the bike, and then I charged my dad that $5 like a million times. So I probably made like a couple $1,000.
Hey.
So going back to that, I kind of think about, oh, maybe that's where it all started. I always like making money, but I also tell another story. I got into this home economics class. I learned how to make this delicious carrot cake. And then I started selling it door to door when I was 12 years old. And my first day, I made $400. It was crazy.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and then from there, I started washing cars. Then I actually was one of the first people to go kite surfing or learn kite surfing. I don't know if this is what you guys see in this photo back here. That's actually my favorite spot to go kite surfing. So kite surfing is a cool sport, and I got to learn it when I was 12 years old. And at 16, I was teaching people how to do it for about $60 an hour as a 16-year-old. So I think it was all kind of like, it all filled me with like, making money, living my own life, my own way. It was pretty cool. So
let's talk about that though. So first off, what is that, Hawaii back there?
This is actually Mauritius Island.
Oh, the Mauritius Islands, right? Is that a French owned?
This is actually a French island. Yeah, it's that spot is called Le Morne in Mauritius. It happens to have what's a phenomenon, which is like
the
underwater waterfall.
Yeah.
And I've actually kite surf all around here many, many times. I go there like once every 2 years or something like that. Really? And yeah, man, I could say I got super, super duper triple lucky on bumping into the sport of kite surfing and also being from an island because, I happened, and then having my brother being obsessed with it as well, and him being able to drive me to the beach so I could learn how to do it. And the sport itself of kite surfing, it just exposes you to be kind of working out, but outside. And it's a superhuman experience. Like the best way I explain to people what that looks like is that when you hooked onto a kite, you experience superhuman capabilities. As an example, I could go 30 miles an hour. I could jump 50 feet in the air, things that you wouldn't normally be able to do. And obviously, like if you get into that and you're exposed to that, then all of a sudden you start traveling, then you start thinking, oh, maybe how can I make sure that I don't work for someone else so that I can continue experiencing that? And that's kind of how it all kind of evolved for me.
Gotcha. That's interesting. I think I need to go down to Puerto Rico and start learning, man.
One of my buddies kite surfed in Belize. What's the craziest like jump experience? Like maybe it's like adrenaline rush that you've had on a kite surfing.
I've actually done snow kiting on the snow, and when you're
Sounds
snow kiting, I think I went snow kiting first time when I was probably around my 20s, 20 years old. I'm 37 right now. When you're snow kiting, you're actually able to use the kite to pull you up the mountain. So you start at the bottom of the mountain, and instead of, let's say, people go skiing and they get on a lift. So when I'm hooked up to a kite, I can just go up a mountain. We're using the wind. And then once you get up to the top of the mountain, you can fly off the mountain. So that's probably the craziest jump that I've ever done, which is go up there and just glide off of the mountain and just fly for like a few minutes and then land.
That's
hopefully
crazy.
at the bottom. I don't do it as much anymore because I have to have certain conditions and there's danger involved. But I've done it many. I have a couple of videos on my YouTube channel, my other YouTube channel, where you can see like this. It's crazy. Yeah.
Someone sent me a video of someone doing that when they were skiing. It's just unreal. That's crazy.
I watch some people snow kiting and doing this glide sometimes, and even I've seen people doing it on the beach, and I'm just like, man, some of them are just not safe, but if you know how to do it, you can do it. So
that's right. It's like one step below wingsuiting, like
something like that. I mean, I think wingsuiting is definitely like really hardcore. But I don't know. I think kite surfing to me is, I've done a lot of crazy hardcore stuff, but to me it's normal because I've been doing it since I was a kid. So it's like, oh, it's not a big deal,
Yeah,
for sure. So tell me this: I saw in one of your videos, I was following you since we talked. Who, tell the audience here and people that are watching this, I saw that you met someone special through it, like someone very famous that you had some private conversations with them.
Yeah, so like as I said, when I was 16 years old, I started teaching kite surfing, but I started doing it at 12 years old. So I already had 4 years of experience then. Because it was a new sport. Okay, so just to put it in perspective, it's almost like when the internet started, right? My brother's telling me like, you should tell them about Alaska. You're late, dude. I already told them about that. So when I got into kite surfing, I was one of the first 100 people to do it in the world. Okay. So then I got really good at it. At 16, I have a guy coming up to me on the beach and say, hey, dude, can you teach me how to do it? Then I start teaching the guy. Then the word spreads. Before I know it, I'm like hiring somebody to help me because I went 40 days straight teaching 8 hours a day. God. After between school and like weekends, my lips had blisters. I was dehydrated. I was burned. Yeah. That's why I look a little bit older than my age too, because I was like on the beach every day. And then I got so good at it, I started teaching. I built up a school. At some point, I had 10 instructors working for me, like almost full time. 1 year we made $500,000 teaching kite surfing, as a 20-year-old. So then what happened is one of my students happened to be the daughter of the prime minister of Tortola, which is one of the British Virgin Islands. She was organizing this event in the British Virgin Islands. There's a very famous billionaire. His name is Richard Branson. And Richard Branson happened to learn kite surfing. He's a daredevil. He's done a lot of crazy stunts. So he learned kite surfing. He got obsessed with kite surfing. And then he gets this great idea of doing what's called the BVI Kite Jam, which is, it was an event where they were pairing rich people that wanted to learn how to kite surf with celebrity instructors and I wouldn't say celebrity instructor, but it was like really like well-known instructors and also professional athletes. So it would be almost as if you could go hang out for the weekend with your professional athlete, your favorite professional athlete, or the best coaches. So somehow they picked me as one of those coaches. I ended up going to this event. It happened to be 2 years. And I ended up hanging out with Richard Branson in his island, in Necker Island, which is the island he owns. And it was crazy.
That was the island he got for a steal. Speaking of real estate, didn't he get it for a steal way back when?
I think he paid $125,000 or $175,000, and at that time, I don't think he had $10,000 to his name.
Yes,
it's just something crazy, man. It's really crazy. But
that's the guys that make it, right? The ones that come out, find a way.
Pretty much.
That's crazy. So you kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier about how you live a crazy life and you wanted to have a business and that allows you to basically keep doing that. So talk a little bit about like what did you want your life to look like and how did you shape your business?
I read this book, The 4-Hour Work Week. I always say it on every interview. It resonated with me so much And for people that haven't read that book, it essentially talks to you about how you can design your life. So even to this day, sometimes I tell my buddies, my wife, my brother, some people, I'm like, man, I feel like I have cheated life, honestly. Like I can tell you, when I'm in this place for like a month,
Cheat code.
I'm literally living here on this beach, which is not even the beach where I'm from, for a month, staying there, kite surfing every day. I believe it 100%. And it all started by me reading a book about it, and where he talks about eliminating stuff and making decisions based on the life you want, you know? And that's what I did. I essentially looked at, okay, what does that look like? First, I have to be financially free. So what does that mean? Well, it means you have to know how much your monthly expenses are. It says $3,000, and then you have a business that makes that much, and then you're financially free. So then I was like, okay, it's pretty simple. Why don't I just do that? And then I made my passion into a business. So my passion was to kite surf. I had people that wanted to learn. I made sure I made more than $3,000 a month, and then all of a sudden I would make more, and I would pile it up for like the months where we would not have any work. And then I just started like experiencing all these trips and all these things. That what was crazy is I got lucky to be in proximity to a bunch of millionaires that were my students, right? Like learning how to kite surf today, it's like $150 an hour, and you go there for like a 3-hour session. So you're dropping $500 on a class, you know. Back then it was like $200, still a good amount of money. So I got exposed to them, and I realized that some of these guys had all the money in the world, but they didn't have the time. So this is what Tim Ferriss on the 4-Hour Workweek, he says that this is called the new rich. So then there's rich with money, and then the new rich is the one that actually has the time. And if you think about, you know, all the things that you hear of people when they're saying, hey, I'm doing this so I can have more time with my family and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think of like, if that life hasn't happened to you yet, you know, where you have kids, you have all these commitments, you haven't gone into crazy debt, you can design your life for sure. And I can tell you, back then, there was definitely not as much information as there is today, and so many resources. So if anybody's like watching this and they think that that's impossible, I actually defy you to maybe reevaluate and see if you know, if there's any way that you can design your life.
Yeah, I think that's big. Chandler, go ahead.
Yeah, one of my best friends actually hasn't worked. Literally, like yesterday was his 1-year anniversary of quitting his job like a year ago. He's got like 9 syndications that he bought while he was doing a W-2, and like he's just been traveling South America and Europe for like just doing whatever he wants for the last like year. Isn't planning on stopping anytime soon, just because he's like, why would I? you know
what's crazy? What's crazy, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but when you said Europe and South America and stuff, dude, that's the thing. People don't realize living in the US or even Puerto Rico, it's like 10 times more expensive than some of these places. Like,
yeah. South America, you could get a dinner with an appetizer, entree, dessert for like $7, and it's like the best food you've ever had.
I stayed there for what? How long were you there, Chandler?
3 months in Colombia, Bolivia, Peru, and Chile.
Yep, there you go, man. Like I've been in Argentina. I've had like a filet mignon with red wine for like $3-5, and I'm just like, I'm looking around like, what? I've been to Bali. In Bali, I've stayed there for like a week in this like awesome hotel with my wife. We had massages. We had all this. Then when I got the bill, $236 for 7 days in this like private villa, I'm just like, what are we doing here? Like, what's going on? It's crazy.
Yeah,
it really is crazy how cheap it is. You can live like.
I think that's what they talk about, right? The 4-Hour Workweek. He talked about. I think one of the ladies or one of the people were talking about how the cost of living in the United States is so much higher, and you can find something for a nice place, South America, for a tenth of the price.
Yeah,
while still
living in a penthouse for $3,000 a month.
Yeah, no. I think that the best thing to experience, if you can, is to travel to some of these places and just have it as a comparison for many reasons. One of them is it actually makes you appreciate where you live. In the U.S., in a lot of places in the U.S. and even in Puerto Rico, we live a pretty good life. Like we don't really experience that much hardship. And even if people have some hardship in the U.S., it doesn't really compare. Like if you go to some places in South America, in some places in other parts of the world, that's where you see real hunger. That's where you see people really struggling. So whenever you feel like you have a really bad day at work, just know that somebody's having a day that's worse, 10 times worse. So
yeah, I like every time I think about like our first world issues, I just go back to when I was in Bolivia, and like there's like kids eating out of the trash on the roads, and you're just like, man, like our life is we're pretty blessed to live in the United States, to be honest. Like,
pretty much, man. I agree.
It's unbelievable, but
So JC, let's go into this. So now we got your background. We got I know we got 15 minutes left. We spent a lot of good times talking. I swear I'm going to go kite surfing down there. I need to learn because my parents live in South Florida. And every time I'm down in South Florida on the beach, there's always like kite surfers out there. And I'm always like, dang, I need to learn how to do that.
Yeah, it's cool.
I need to get up there. But tell us a little bit about your business. So how did you design your business? I mean, I think we took a good step into it, right? You want that 4-hour work week. You read the book. You felt the freedom you wanted, the time. So let's go into your business model or what you do.
Yeah, so I actually ran my kite surfing school for about 15 years, did really well. Then it took a turn after 5 years ago. There was a big hurricane that came to Puerto Rico. The hotel where we were set up kind of closed, went out of business. And then we kind of like try to keep the business alive. A hurricane came and a bunch of things happened. But luckily, I've always been the type of entrepreneur that's, and I think this happens to everybody, that's always looking at something else at the same time they're running their business. It's called the shiny object syndrome. My buddy Fernando's doing a show about that. And to me, I wasn't actually chasing that, but my girlfriend at the time, her dad happened to invest in vacation rentals, and he had like 3 of them on the beach. And I remember spending time with them in their apartments and looking at the ocean and just being obsessed with the ocean and the beach and kite surfing, all that stuff. And I see this really successful entrepreneur owning all these vacation rentals. Mm-hmm. And I tell him one day, man, if I marry your daughter, it would be cool if I get one of these apartments. I made that mistake. And this guy's like, no, man, you'll never get any of my places. Like, if you want to get this, you have to figure out how to get them for yourself, right? And at some point in 2012, it happened. It was actually before this hurricane. One of my buddies, one of my students, became one of my kite surfing students became my buddy, and he said, hey, let's get an apartment on the beach. And I figured, oh, that'll be cool. We rented this apartment, this 2-bedroom apartment on the beach. After 2 months of him living with me, because he wasn't from Puerto Rico, he had to move back to California. And I've always been the type of person that always wants to have stuff, but I want my business to pay for it or someone else to pay for it. Like, I don't want it to come from my pocket, right? I still feel like this today. So he says, you should check out Airbnb. And this was in 2012. Airbnb was founded in 2009. And in 2012, I go on the website, I look at it, and I'm like, oh, this looks pretty cool. Yeah, it's a way where I can kind of like house hack, if you will. So I was thinking of actually renting his room, because this was a 2-bedroom beach apartment, crazy ocean view. I put the bedroom on Airbnb. It doesn't rent. Then I decide, let's just rent the entire place to see what happens. And I got so many bookings within the next like 72 hours that I realized I had to move out of the apartment because I had rented the entire place. But because I was so kind of like, I was like, I don't know, I was, what was I, like 20 something? I was like, whatever, let's try it. Then I got so many bookings in 3 months, I had the entire rent for the year. So then I was like, whoa, what's going on here? Let me look at this. So I started running some numbers. And then because I had no place to live, I decided I'm going to go get another apartment. And keep in mind, I wasn't buying these apartments, I was renting them. Mm-hmm. I get a second apartment, a couple of days into it. I'm like, I wonder if this one would rent as well. And sure enough, that one could rent as well. So I found myself getting these leases. And in some of these leases, they back then, it wasn't a thing that Airbnb wasn't a thing. There wasn't such thing as rental arbitrage, which you can go into if you want, which is kind of that strategy. And then I was able to acquire some of these properties through this rental model. And but my kite surfing business was really what was making me the money. This was kind of like a side gig, if you will. Mm-hmm. And then in 2017, this hurricane hits. Nobody wants to learn how to kite surf. And at this point, I have 4 apartments that are cash flowing. And I sit in my couch, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? And luckily, I had saved up some money. My mom taught me how to save money. I had like $100,000 saved up in my savings account. And I decided, you know what? Like, I'm not gonna feel sorry for myself. I'm just gonna go and get more of these apartments. This seems to be working. It's a cheap way to get into real estate. So I went from 4 apartments to 10 in a matter of like a couple months. And then before I knew it, I was like, oh man, I think I could live off of this. I could be financially free this way too. So that's kind of how I started into Airbnb, and that is what my business looks like today. I actually don't run my kite surfing school anymore. I solely focus on Airbnb, and today we have 2 boutique hotels on the works. We have over 30 Airbnbs, and we're looking to scale that. So
nice. So 2 boutique hotels. What does that look like? You're just renting the whole hotel?
No, so we're actually building them out. So boutique hotel is essentially kind of like when you get started in Airbnb. So Airbnb is actually one of the hottest topics in real estate right now. So the reason with Airbnb is obviously the cash flow. Is the main reason, right? It's not necessarily like everybody's excited to do more work, right? They're more excited about making more money. So when I got into the Airbnb game, when you're getting into it, you can manage other people's property, or you can rent other people's property to sublease them on Airbnb, or you can do what some people would think is step 1, which is to go and buy an Airbnb, okay? Which I don't really recommend if you're getting started. So eventually, as you scale that, you realize there's actually some inefficiencies with having single properties, single family properties, like apartments, etc. And then you say, what's the next step look like? And you're not going to go and buy like a 100-unit hotel. So then you buy properties that are like small, 10, 20 units, and then you make them into hotels. But these are called boutique hotels, especially if you have some sort of design. So right now we are building 2 of them. At the moment, they're going to be about 10 units each. And these are kind of proof of concept models that we're doing. In Puerto Rico, there's really massive tax incentives for building hotel rooms. So it does make sense for us it just all makes sense, right? Like we already have the experience with the Airbnbs. I actually studied hospitality, so I didn't say that before. That's my background. I studied hospitality. So it all kind of makes sense, like how Airbnb took me now to the boutique hotels, and I'm already starting to think about how can I buy like a Marriott or something like that,
Hey, full on Marriott.
Yeah, like the boutique hotel, is it gonna be like tiki hut styles, or what are you gonna looking to do with it, or is it?
We have 2 concepts. So the first one is like an ultra luxury boutique hotel, and that one has like marble flooring, like it's designed by interior designer and all that stuff. And it's in a neighborhood where there happens to be like large houses available for rent, but they're like, to rent the house is like $2,500 a night. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to say, hey, if you want to stay in that neighborhood, but you don't have $2,500 to rent the house, you can rent a room in our hotel for like $160, $180, and it's like really nice, But it works really well for like couples that are looking for like a particular experience where they don't want to be in like a big hotel where they kind of feel like whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
So that one's going to be a little bit more luxury. The other one's going to be more like an urban, kind of like a little bit hipster. So it's kind of cool when you do this small hotels. You can kind of do them small, do them different, and see what works, and then you can scale that. So
yeah, that's pretty sweet. So what is like the design, like construction process? I mean, I don't know what stage you're in of like doing the project, but like what is the starting and getting this off the ground, like a development of a boutique hotel look like?
Yeah, I could go hours into it, but essentially the smartest way to go about it is that why are you doing it? Like this is the main question that you have to ask yourself. So for us, it's because we're looking to scale, right? So there's a pain point behind, which is like, hey, doing one property at a time, one apartment or one house at a time is cool, but it loses some scale. Then if you're renting somebody's property, if you're doing rental arbitrage, you're kind of at their mercy, versus if you own the thing, then all of a sudden you can actually create your own process, create the experience for the guests that you really want, versus sometimes when you get an apartment in a condo or in a building. So that's the why, right? The why is I want to build it my own way. I want to provide a particular experience because I think people will appreciate it, right? Then the process to build it is you decide, am I going to design it myself or am I going to hire experts? So obviously we all start with thinking that we can do everything ourselves. And then you realize that you suck and there's other people are actually a lot better than you. So I'm in the process right now where I'm just figuring out what do I think I'm good at. And that's why I said, what do I think? Because I might even be wrong. And what I think I'm good at is choosing the location, structuring the deal, buying it, negotiating it, all that stuff. And I have some ideas of what I want. And I also have an idea of the experience I want to give people. But how to build it, I have no idea. How to design it, I have some ideas, but I'm hiring an interior designer. And the process is just to surround yourself with people that see your vision, and those people come slowly but surely. And then also hiring people fast and then firing them faster if they're not, doing what you want. But at the end of the day, it comes down to your motivation. For us, it's designing a space that we can create a particular experience, and also taking advantage of the tax incentives for sure. Like if you are doing any sort of business and you're not thinking about taxes, then it's not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep. So in Puerto Rico, if you build hotels as an example, the business that runs the hotel would pay 4% corporate tax. The owners would receive 100% exemption on distributions. So if we were partners in a hotel in Puerto Rico and it was time to distribute profits, you would get tax 0. So that's pretty nice.
That's really nice.
And these are some of the things that are very powerful. So imagine in a year or two from now, as we get into bigger opportunities, we'll be able to provide, our partners all this benefit. So we're going through the process of kind of taking all the steps so that we can.
Let me ask you this, JC, because I know a lot of the tax code for Puerto Rico is that if you're living there, you got to live there, 51% of the time in order to receive it, or maybe it's even a little more. But with that, if say we just say, for example, me and Chandler found a place to build in Puerto Rico, it's just off, we still get that 0% off that building or off that entity, since it would be a Puerto Rican entity.
Yeah, that's actually, I'm glad that you asked this question. It's a very good question. And it's a question that I've been looking for the answer myself, because I actually chose particular to get into social media in English and not in Spanish, so that I could communicate with you guys about this, because I don't think a lot of people are doing it, right? So the way it works is that if you buy real estate, it's always smart to establish a corporation, okay? Now, it's important to understand that Puerto Rico is a territory of the United States, okay? So it's not a territory of South Korea. It's from the United States of America, okay? So what does that mean? It means that Puerto Ricans are actually U.S. citizens. They are born with passports, just like any other American, okay? So the only difference is that the United States government has purposely decided not to make Puerto Rico a state, okay? And I think, I'm gonna get political momentarily. The reason behind it is because there's 3.5 million Puerto Ricans living here. So if we decided to vote red, it'll probably go red. The whole election will go that way, right? If we decide to vote blue, so that's one reason to do that. But also because it's a territory where United States corporations, such as the Walmarts of the world, the Costcos of the world, any of these massive companies, which, by the way, their biggest seller stores, the biggest stores are located in Puerto Rico. So when they come to Puerto Rico, they don't pay taxes, okay? Yeah. So obviously when they're lobbying, they want to make sure Puerto Rico does not become a state, because they can actually set up shop here. We consume more than Americans, from the mainland, and they don't pay taxes, okay? So with that said, the way it works is that they create corporations in Puerto Rico. So to create a corporation in Puerto Rico, it takes about 10 minutes, maybe. You go on the website, you create it, 123 Main Street LLC. You're the beneficiary. You can essentially, and I'm not providing any sort of legal advice or any sort of CPA advice. But you create a corporation, and then you fund the corporation, and that corporation is a Puerto Rican corporation, and then that corporation would invest in the asset, and then because it's a Puerto Rican entity, once it gets the distributions, it will file taxes in Puerto Rico, and it will essentially not pay tax on that money. Now, if that money gets sent to the US to the owner, then you would get taxed in that state, whichever way. But what I tell people when they're going to establish something like that is seek some legal advice, but essentially, like, you are going to have some ordinary expenses on any of your companies, and you can expense, and you could do that from your Puerto Rico entity. So the answer to that is that you could effectively take advantage completely without having to move to Puerto Rico.
Interesting. Yeah, I get it. I understand. I've heard some people doing it. I know Jerry Norton. Do you know Jerry Norton?
Of course I know him. Yeah, I see you have the TTP t-shirt, the Talk to People t-shirt.
Yeah, I got it from Brent. I was on his podcast one time.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I love those guys. They're amazing.
Yeah, so I know, I'm sure you probably ran into him a couple times talking about that.
I haven't met Jerry Norton yet, but I watch his stuff. It's incredible. He moved to Puerto Rico because he's actually taking advantage of a different section of the law, which is he's exporting services. So when you're doing as a corporation, that's one thing. But when you are actually as an individual and you're exporting services, so exporting services would be like a consulting gig. Like, let's say if you're a lawyer or whatever, that's one way to do it. Or the other one would be if you're like a trader. A lot of traders that do like commodities and crypto and all that stuff, they move to Puerto Rico and they move from here, and then they, on their personal taxes, they would pay 4%, which is wild, super wild. But Jerry Norton, that's what Jerry Norton's doing,
Interesting. Yeah. No, I mean, there's definitely a bunch of loopholes there. I wouldn't say loopholes; they're designed.
No, their design it's essentially what I said. Like, the U.S. wanted to keep a place that they have control over, where they could have a tax haven, but under the control of the United States. That's essentially what it is. So they're very well aware of what's going on here.
Oh yeah, they know. They designed it that way, right?
And dude, have you guys ever been to Puerto Rico?
I never been.
No, St. Thomas, but not Puerto Rico.
So this is what I always tell people, okay? So when you come to Puerto Rico, this is where do you guys live?
I live in Colorado.
Okay.
I live in Atlanta, so.
Okay. So I was just in Atlanta. It's cold right now, and it was rainy. Puerto Rico is always 85 degrees and tropical. The food is fantastic. The people are super hospitable. They speak English. And they're very friendly, super safe. And when you come around Puerto Rico and you land in the airport, right next to it, there's a very famous beach, and it's a bunch of buildings. So it feels very urban. It feels a lot like Waikiki Beach in Hawaii.
Yeah.
So it's very urban. The moment you get here, you're like, oh, this is not what I was thinking it was.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, it just, that's why people get confused. So once they get here, they realize, oh, Puerto Rico is actually not that far away. Flights are very inexpensive. Somebody was telling me, oh, I can't go to Puerto Rico because I need a passport. I'm like, no, you just need your license, man.
It's like
it's too far, or it's too far away. I'm like, the plane does all the work. You don't have to fly the plane yourself.
You just sit down.
Anyways, the point is that I think if you haven't been to Puerto Rico, you're crazy. That's the first thing I think about. And you'd be shocked with how what a good place to come, and the opportunities that are here.
For sure, yeah. No, I want to get out there. I'm going to Europe for 3 months, but after that, I want to hit some tropical islands. Chandler's more of he's a snowman. I like the beaches more.
Which part of Colorado are you from?
I'm from Georgia, but not Atlanta, but like close to Atlanta. But
okay.
I live in Denver, but I was just in Jackson Hole and Big Sky, Montana, skiing for the last couple weekends.
Dude, you could be a snow kiter. We should make you into a snow kiter.
You could be snow kiting.
You could save so much money on lift fees.
I know. Well, yeah, on the passes, right? So just snow kite up to the top. Actually, me and my friend were talking about we wanted to learn how to do it, so I need to pay you.
The first time I went snow kiting, it was at the Dillon Reservoir in Colorado.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, and then I went to Breckenridge, and I stayed in Colorado for a month. And
Uh-huh.
I've snow kited Colorado a couple of times. I've been to Jackson Hole. Jackson Hole was the first time I went to ski when I was 16 years old.
That's a tough mountain. I would imagine that Jackson Hole is a great place to snow kite because it's super steep.
Dude, Jackson Hole is amazing. It's
I love it.
Amazing.
It was
really
great.
amazing.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
it was a phenomenal place. But yeah,
So-
I mean, that's one thing I liked about Medellin, Colombia, is the weather was perfect every day. It was literally like 78 to like 65.
The only bad thing is that the women are not very good looking.
In Puerto Rico?
Colombia.
In Medellin.
Oh, really? They're
Just
okay.
kidding.
Chandler's like, what's going on? He's like,
Okay.
He's like, what is he talking about? I'm
Yeah.
joking. I'm joking.
you gotta be careful out there.
I mean, hey man, maybe you got a different taste with the Puerto Rican women. I don't know.
So you guys are in wholesaling?
Yes.
We're mostly
Yeah.
wholesaling, yeah. So I have some Airbnbs. I have 3 of them. I'm actually trying to move some Airbnbs down in South Florida. I got
Oh, really?
31, so I'm buying them, but I'm gonna try to move them down to like Palm Beach area, Palm Beach County.
Okay.
We'll do some Airbnbs, at least a couple down there. But yeah, we wholesale mostly. Goal is to be doing about 3.5 million this year gross.
Wow.
We net around 45%. So
what are you guys seeing right now? Is there any difference on how you guys were doing your business like last year versus now?
Well, a little more conservative on underwriting, but just mainly the main thing is just like focus on higher return on investment activities like marketing channels, better training for your sales team, hiring better people, keeping the better people, getting rid of the people who aren't as good, just having higher expectations.
yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned it a little bit, JC. Is slower to hire and quicker to fire.
Yep.
Mhm.
I mean, you like I said. So Chandler, you weren't here on that podcast, and I was talking to Austin, but I think Sharper was over there speaking with JC. So you've heard a lot of these same things, obviously from Sharper too.
Yeah, we're actually working with Sharper, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Who are you working with?
I'm working with Austin.
Okay, nice.
Austin and Gary Sharper.
Yeah.
Coming out, right? Gary's gonna come out in what? Probably 3 months.
Gary's coming out in 3 months. Austin was just here, and then we're gonna have Brandon coming up in March 15th or something like that.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's good.
Yeah, no,
I like that.
that's definitely a great investment, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm just kind of getting into it, and it's been interesting. I went to the Ryan Pineda event in Las Vegas about a month ago, and he basically said, "We're using these guys, so do whatever you want." And I was like, "Done." Like I don't need I don't need to hear anything else. Let's I'm not gonna. I'm at the point right now where like if you're the master of wholesaling and you tell me this is the way to do it,
right here, that book.
Dude, like I don't need to know how to do it. Just tell me like who I need to call, and I'll just sign up with them. Like it's that simple.
So have you ever heard of Collective Genius, JC?
I have heard of it. I haven't looked into it too much.
You need to join that. So it's a mastermind we're into, and hundreds of other real estate guys. But there's a guys doing like 40 plus Airbnbs. I think he owns them all. I'm just thinking about it. There's guys doing Airbnb in there, but you would definitely be a big addition to because I don't know there's many people doing the rental arbitrage, right? Airbnb in there.
Yeah, I know how to do that really well. I was actually surprised when I was at the Ryan Pineda event when people were talking about rental arbitrage, and I was like, is it such a big deal for you guys? Like for me, it's just so straightforward. Like why would you not try this? It makes so much sense. It brings so much value to the other person,
That's one of my friends. I'm actually going to dinner with them tonight, but that's what they do for people is they do like done for you Airbnb arbitrage. So someone will pay them and they'll find them an Airbnb, like for them.
Really?
Yeah.
So one of your friends will actually find them a rental arbitrage deal.
Yeah, they do like 30 a month.
That's crazy. I've never heard of this before.
Talk to him.
I can connect you with him, but
let's connect. I wanna talk to them. I actually, which states does he work in?
The Arizona, like Omaha, Denver, basically all the major like hot U.S. metros.
Really?
So they collect the upfront fee from a front fee
like
from
10K, 10K upfront. then they find them an Airbnb in like 30 to 45 days, and then the person like qualifies for it. That they pay for all the the person who they find it for does all the work, right?
Yep.
And then they catch like a back end of like a design, like an interior designer like fee or whatever. But yeah, it's pretty good. It's a pretty good model.
How much do they charge for this?
$10K, and then they charged the client, I think it's like $3 a square foot for the design, something like that, $3 or $4.
That's not bad actually. So they'll charge $10,000 to get them the deal, and then they'll also like do the design for like whatever it is per square foot, and then you basically have like a turnkey Airbnb rental.
Yeah, exactly. And you just have to put the money up basically.
And then how many years do you have the deal for?
They do 1 year. I think they do 1 year leases with like the option to basically renew if like the lease or like whoever's like on the lease doesn't like breach the contract with the landlord.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm interested in that. I mean, there's a lot of value if somebody can find the deal. There's a lot of value in doing that. I would pay that much if the property itself like can produce good cash flow, but I would look into the numbers and all that stuff. I think there's
the one thing that my buddy, his name's J.R. Rivas. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he crushes. Like, so a couple of his Airbnbs in Denver, he's literally netting like $5K a month from them.
Yeah.
And like,
I mean, I can see that.
I'm sure JC knows about that in the beach condos.
That's good, but it's not that much. I mean, I've seen other numbers.
I guess it seems like a lot compared to like a lot of other people you hear the results or whatever. He did.
No, but it's not bad. It's good.
One property, obviously, too.
Yeah.
No, it's good. And the question is, are they actually managing it themselves, or are they actually like hiring third party property management?
They have third party management now. They used to do themselves, but
I can get them so much business too, because like I actually have a lot of people coming to me and they want to get a deal, a rental arbitrage deal, and they don't know how to do it. They're like, oh, I've talked to some really high level guys where when I met them and they knew what I was doing, they were like, dude, tell me more. And I was like, I thought you would know this stuff already. And I think if they have a really good formula on how they can get these kind of turnkey or close to that, shitload of value. Nobody's doing this. I haven't seen it.
It's they're like there's maybe like one other person who's the competitor for what they're offering. But yeah, wow. I'll connect you with them after this, and then
that would be awesome. I don't know if you guys have you guys' phone number, like email or Instagram, but
yeah, what we'll do is after we end it. So what would say, wrap it up, and then we'll talk about it offline. Get your numbers and stuff, JC.
Awesome.
So it started off. I know it's 12 minutes over. We told you, so sorry about that, JC.
But, no worries.
What would you, for the people that are gonna rewatch this, and I know we went through a lot of things here, a lot of great stuff. What would you leave the listeners with? What's one thing you can leave the listeners with? It could be, not just a business tip, but what's one tip you can leave the listeners with?
I made a video today about something that I think it's going to. We've lost since the pandemic, and we need to do more of right now, which is to be more hospitable with people. We have to, instead of being, how do we do the least amount? Like, how do we like over deliver in terms of service and hospitality to people? You do that, and it's going to be so refreshing for the other party and so unexpected that you just have to wait for that to come back to you. And I've experienced that myself. And what I'm telling people is right now, hey, don't slack. Don't like do the bare minimum. Go like the other way and just wait. You'll see how people are just like, they can't, like, why are you so nice? Why are you like, being so hospitable to me? Like, I don't know. I'm treating you how I would like to be treated. That's all.
Exactly. I think that's a big thing we're leaving out nowadays, like you said.
Yeah, the pandemic screwed up service, like people think, oh, like I can do the bare minimum and like get like 20% tip,
Yeah.
How about 0% tip, and then you start working for your tip again, So that'll be my takeaway.
I like that. That's another thing. Actually, in South America, tipping is not normal there. You're not.
Yeah,
a lot of places outside the U.S., right?
Which is crazy.
No, in the U.S., you go to get a coffee, and then they swipe the POS. You have a line behind you. And then you feel bad if you don't tip them,
It's like 20, 25, 30%. I'm like, yo, what?
I'm like, who came up with these numbers?
Exactly.
Like, while you're at it, why don't you put a 1,000% tip? You know, ridiculous.
Yeah, might as well.
Crazy. But thanks again, JC, for coming on. We appreciate it, and I love the value you brought.